All right, welcome back. This is episode 91 of the UNSECURITY Podcast, and I'm your host this week, Brad Nigh. Today is Monday, August 3rd. August already, Evan. And joining me is Evan.
I'm kind of excited about it being August, though, because we're closer to 2020 being over.
Yeah. This has been a weird year.
Yeah. Weirdest I've ever. Yeah, it's weird.
So we have our 8th guest for the Women in Security series this week, Theresa Semmens. Welcome, Theresa.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
See, I told you she'd say something nice.
I know. Very nice. So before we really get started, Theresa, I don't know if you've listened to any of the podcasts, but we just kind of recap our weeks from the previous week and what we did over the weekend. So Evan, why don't we start with you, and what did you do last week and this weekend?
Well, I had my motorcycle that was all crushed up from hitting that deer. So I spent the weekend putting that all back together again. Learned a bunch of stuff about motorcycles that I didn't know before. It's kind of intimidating tearing into a Harley, pulling everything out and putting it back together again. But it worked out really nice. So we're ready to go.
I did have that you had some sort of motorcycle adventure. Not quite what I thought it was going to be, but.
Yeah, I have the pictures of before and after. I mean, it's pretty cool to see the before and really troubleshooting all the electrical stuff. A lot of test leads kind of going everywhere and trying to solder things together. It worked out.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Theresa, what about you? What did you do over the last week and this weekend? Do you have a good weekend?
I had a wonderful weekend. I spent the month of July in North Dakota.
Ooh.
I was able to work remotely from there. And then last Tuesday, I took off in the car, headed back to Las Vegas, and had a beautiful trip. There's some gorgeous scenery. I went down through the Black Hills and in through Utah. The part of Utah where you go through Provo and stuff is just stunning. So if you guys ever get a chance to drive through there, do it. Evan, it's one of the best motorcycle trips you're ever going to take. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Lots of curves and stuff. You'll enjoy it.
I'm
so
excited.
Got back here Tuesday into the heat. Had triple digits. Yesterday it was 118. Wasn't expecting that, but I had a good weekend, just chilling and working and catching up, and that's about it.
It was gorgeous here yesterday. It was like 75 and just nice breeze and sunny and like
rub it in.
Yeah, once that humidity broke.
Yeah. Yeah, Saturday was not fun, but yesterday it's supposed to be really nice all week this week too.
Yeah, and I'll be in, speaking of Black Hills, I'll be in Black Hills Friday for Sturgis.
That's a lot of fun. I've been there.
Yeah.
It's the best place to people watch.
Well, they say this is the biggest gathering of people since the pandemic.
Ooh, be safe.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully everybody going there. I was talking to John Harmon this morning, and everybody who goes there is accepting the risk. It's not like it's a surprise. Like, what? COVID? When did this happen? And hopefully everybody that leaves from there is smart about it, right? I'm gonna self-quarantine for a couple of weeks just to be safe, because what I don't want to do is get other people sick. But I know that, I might get sick with COVID. So, I'd rather do that and have some sense of normalcy for 5 days as opposed to not. So, and still
all craving normalcy.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you, Brad? What'd you do this weekend?
I got started on building that fish tank stand, so that was fun with my daughters. We'd stained it last weekend and just kind of let it dry, and we got the bones put together. So the best part is it doesn't wobble; it's level.
Attaboy.
So
how big a tank is it?
So I built it so it could hold the stand can hold a 30-gallon tank, but I only have a 15-gallon one. Got a puffer fish in it, so just a freshwater puffer.
Nice.
We can upgrade later. I figured I'd make it a little bit bigger and upgrade later if I needed. So all I've got left is the bottom, a shelf, and doors, and like the finishing work, some sanding and staining and stuff. So that was fun. And then
you have a beautiful house to put it in, man. I've seen your house, and I think it'll look really nice in it.
thank you.
Yeah.
And then last week, good week. Got a bunch of stuff done from, I had a couple sales calls, but a lot of stuff on our virtual QSA offering that we're putting together, and the next iteration of our FACT program. And then into the week, did some capture the flag stuff and some IR forensics, getting ready. I'm going to help the team with DEF CON that starts Friday at noon on they're doing, or I guess we as a company are doing 2 different capture the flags, one more of a red team, one more of a blue team. So just kind of getting back into that mindset of that technical approach. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be this next weekend will be fun.
Yeah, I heard that Warlock Games is not doing it this year, so I'm not unhappy to see that.
No. And then
I'll maybe get a haircut while I'm in South Dakota. You can see I need one. Holy crap.
I know. I've got see, there you go. I got stain on my arm. Saturday we actually dropped off our dogs for training. So that'll be interesting. My kids are going a little bit crazy without the 2 dogs around, but they'll be gone for at least a month. We're thinking maybe doing a 2-month. So it'll be on leash and off leash training. So
You're training them for hunting or just obedience?
Obedience. Yeah, just because they're both in that 85-pound range and super sweet dogs, but they're strong. They'll pull a kid.
Oh, yeah.
I have a 30-pound Cocker Spaniel that can pull an adult.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's cool.
All right. What about you guys? Anything this coming week that you Evan, I'm sure you're looking forward to Sturgis, but Theresa, what about you? Anything coming up this week that you're excited about?
I'm flying back to North Dakota for the month of August, and that's about it. Nothing real exciting.
And that's where your family is, right, Theresa?
Correct. Yep. Little town called Lidgerwood.
Lidgerwood.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're not back, so when you're in Vegas, they're back in North Dakota.
Yes, they're back in North Dakota. My husband comes for the winter in Vegas. He'll come about middle of November, stay till the middle of April, and then goes back. So because of COVID, I've been able to work remotely, and he has a farmstead where we live. He has had fiber optic up to the house for 5 years, believe it or not, and has not put in internet. And I finally said, okay, if you want me to come, if you want me to stay, you've got to put that fiber optic in. You got to get the internet in so I can at least work. So he waited till the very last minute, and then he had it installed. And I can guarantee you, he won't be uninstalling it because he's enjoying it.
There you go. See, that's love, right?
That's
yes,
fun.
that is love.
Now, was it the same thing when you were down in Miami, when you were at the University of Miami? Was it the same way? He stayed up in North Dakota?
Yes, correct. He has a business and then he also farms. So he couldn't really just pack up and move with me. So, but it's been working out pretty well.
Yeah, well, I'm impressed. And would he come down and see you in Miami in the winter there?
Yes.
Too?
Yep. He was down. He loved it. The little town that wasn't a little town, it was a suburb of Miami that we lived in called Cutler Bay. They allowed you to put in wells and stuff. And the house we bought, they had not done that. So they didn't have any irrigation or anything. And so that was the first thing he did, because that's his business, is he sunk a well and then he did all of the irrigation for it was a 1/3 acre yard. He did all of that. We did all of the landscaping. So he loved it because he had projects.
There you go.
Is is he encouraging you to take these jobs in the warm weather areas so you can escape?
As a matter of fact, he is. He told me, this is funny, when I applied for this position with the Nevada System of Higher Education, we call it NCHE, he said, Nevada? And I went, yes. And he goes, well, if you get that job in Nevada, I'm going to buy you a convertible. I'm still waiting for the convertible.
Maybe it hasn't been long enough yet.
Yeah.
Maybe he's working on it. Or maybe he's dragging his feet like he did with the internet.
Yeah, there you go.
It's possible. Who knows? Oh, well.
Oh, man, that's funny. All right. So get going here. This is the 8th week of our series discussing the topic of women in information security industry. And then I think you'd agree we're seeing some patterns, but still getting new and interesting insight and just little tidbits every week. It's really been educational for me. How about you?
Well, yeah. And when I wrote in the show notes today, it's we didn't go into this with a plan or any expectations. And I'm really, really pleased with how things have worked out. We've had such a good variety of women join us, from, a woman who it really isn't an information security practitioner. That's where we started off with Renee. And then, all the way to, CISOs in corporate America, to a student,
Yeah.
a new security person. And now, Theresa's our first multi kind of CISO in higher ed, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, this would be interesting. I've had some experience with higher ed, so I'm interested to see what she can say about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Theresa, just conversational, just kind of, we'll just go with it and see what happens. So I guess start with, how did you get started in information security?
Oh, I started out as an information systems auditor for the North Dakota State Auditor's Office. And it didn't take too long to realize I wasn't a good fit. I just it didn't work for me being an auditor. But the part of auditing I did like was the security portions. And so they would assign those to me. And I decided if I was going to stay in this field, I needed to look in other directions besides the auditing. And a position came up at North Dakota State University. They were looking for their first information security officer. So I applied for it, was selected, interviewed, and they hired me, and I started there in 2003. And I had the fortunate good luck to have a CIO who mentored me. And he was the one who encouraged me to become active within the higher education groups, such as EDUCAUSE and Internet2 and stuff. And then I also had a wonderful group of colleagues from network services through desktop services who helped guide me, because I was the only one in my office. So I needed their input, I needed their help to be able to do the work that came with my position. And I learned a great deal. I learned how to, you get into higher ed and everything is about structure. You have policies and you have standards and you have procedures. And so you learn to do those. I became quite good at writing policy during that time. Also, the training, education, awareness is a big part. Funny story. I used to go around the office, and if I saw someone who had not locked their computer screen, I would go in and I would set a little message with a timer that would click on if the screen was inactive for 2 minutes, saying the cyber cop was here.
Nice.
And of course, 2 minutes is really short, so that they would have to come to me and say, can you please unlock that so I can use my computer? So I'd have to go in, and then we'd have a little discussion. And after it was pretty good. I didn't find a whole lot after a while, but it was interesting. We kicked off a PCI project there, of which you guys were part. And then that was a huge undertaking, as well as we did another project where we did, what the hell was remove, reduce, redact, it was called, where we found out there were a lot of PII stored in paper files, such as SSNs, credit card information. So we did a huge project getting the campus to remove all of that. And I think they still do that once a year. They go through and purge and follow records retention and everything. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So during that time, I also wore two other hats. I did all of the legal work for the IT contracts. We'll go in and read through, make sure all the security stuff was included. And then they also nominated and made me director of records management. So you would think records management doesn't fit with IT, but since everything is digital, IT plays a huge part in that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So did you establish the information security program at NDSU?
I did. But like I said, I had a lot of help. A lot of colleagues that partnered with me. So.
But it's a really, I mean, I know now it's a really well-run program. And every year they put on that conference up there in Fargo. Were you part of getting that started too?
I was instrumental in getting that started. That was my idea. And the CIO gave me carte blanche to run with it. And we did that. We did not use any funds that came from IT. That was all self-supported. And we did it from, I believe, 2005 through 2008. And then things kind of started to, I don't know what you want to say, ease off, the attendance and stuff. And the team was getting tired. It was hard work to put all of that together. So then we stopped, and then the provost back in, I believe, 2012, wanted to instigate it again, wanted it started up. So then we kicked it off, and this time we opened it up to the public. So, and then the attendance really sparked, and we became quite well known. They're still running it. It's still very, very successful.
I have a feeling I'm never going to be invited back to speak, because I was invited last year and this year, and both years were canceled. Last year was the blizzard, and this year was the pandemic.
Oh my gosh.
So
you caused the pandemic.
I caused the blizzard last year, and
so it's not the Chinese, it's you.
I guess. I don't know.
Oh, no.
It's like, I was looking forward to it, but
now we're going to get hate mail.
No, I don't think so.
So, all right. So you're at NDSU, and because this is fascinating to me. So you were at NDSU for 14 years.
Yes.
Long time. 14
years. That's unusual for a CISO to be in a position that long. So normally that lasts, usually around 7 years. And then, for whatever reasons, they decide to move on, move up, move into a different field, go into something else.
Yeah, some burn out, right?
I was going to say there's burnout, a lot of burnout. I've been there, done that.
So do you feel like moving to that new position kind of, because you went from NDSU to University of Miami, did that revitalize you, after 14 years of a new challenge, or,
Yes, it did. I was looking for something different. I'd lived in North Dakota all my life, needed a change. And that position came up, and it was a challenge. Miami is a huge Research One facility, and they have maritime research. They have this called Sea Stars, where they have a lot of satellites. They have their medical research is huge. So then they have they're a private school, so they had about 16,000 students. When you include the hospital and the research there was around 16,000 employees.
Wow.
Really diverse group. Both NDSU, both University of Miami had distributed IT, and rightfully so, because there's certain colleges that need specific type hardware, software type things in order to do their work and research. So there you work with them instituting their needs, what their wants, and trying to match that with the security standards and the federal standards in place. So there's a lot of challenges there, a lot of work. You have to work with faculty. Faculty have specific ideas, and trying to blend what their ideas are on the freedom of research and education along with what is mandated with federal and state laws. Gets to be interesting. At University of Miami, I worked with one of the law professors regarding policies and standards. And I would write, he would rewrite, and I would rewrite, and then he would rewrite again.
Yeah, I bet that was a fun back and forth because, from my experience, lawyers don't like policies to begin with because they'd rather just argue their way out of something. And then the faculty is like, I got tenure, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
That's part of it. I did learn a lot. He was Dr. Francen, what is his name? And towards the end, I got to the point where I could guess pretty much what he was going to require or what he wanted. So I would write it in that way. And then we would go back and forth on the finer points. Worked out pretty good. I learned a lot from him. So I can say I respected him from the beginning, and I respected him even more when it was done because he taught me as much as he did.
Yeah. When I remember it was such a great privilege to come down and see you down there.
Oh, it was a privilege to have you.
Oh, it was so fun. I still think about just the Cuban restaurant. I can't remember the name of that place where you told me to go.
Oh, Havana Harry's.
Oh my gosh. Seriously, Brad, they had a Cuban. It was like this big. It was like $7.
Oh yeah. Their plates would feed 3 people.
Oh, I still have the mug. And I still have the socks that you gave me as gifts for.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I was looking forward to coming to see you at INSHE this year. But, COVID, thanks to Brad, for starting COVID.
What can we say? Your training for the NIST cybersecurity framework was very well received.
Good.
We are in the process of following through with your recommendations. We're putting a committee together to go through the cybersecurity framework and determine what is most relevant for us. And we're going to be looking into Security Studio. We're going to be doing that.
Good.
So you provided us with a lot of resources that we can use. We really appreciate it.
Well, it's just one of those things. I mean, when you have such a good relationship with somebody, in this industry, you can do really cool things together. So it's fun working with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Works both ways.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Brad. You were supposed to be leading and we're just talking.
What's funny is I almost said something last week. I was like, do you want to lead? Because you and Theresa know each other really well, and I'll lead next week. And then I forgot to say something.
So here you are.
So I guess, what we've heard from the previous 7 guests is, the ratio men to women is about 75-25. Do you see that in higher ed as well, or is it different? Because we've had private industry and for the most part.
Oh, I think it's the same. I think it's 75-25. We have more younger women coming in that want to get in entry into the field, and I've noticed that they are in serious need of mentors and guides. They tend to want to please more. So working with them, you have to guide them in the right direction. You have to, what do I want to say? Just get them going and keeping their spirit up, keeping them excited about what they're doing. I'm working with one on my team now. She's a lot of fun. I can give her a project and she just runs with it. She's the one, I'm not afraid to let her take the lead. She comes back and she says, Theresa, this is what I've learned. She does all of her vulnerability scanning. And when she hits a problem or she hits a roadblock or a hiccup, she digs into it. I mean, she's just like a little gopher going for it. She's not going to let go until she's got that problem solved, which I think is amazing. I noticed the same thing at the University of Miami. We had hired 2 new security analysts or engineers just before I left, and they were both eager to learn. Both of them had master's degrees. They'd gone on, but they wanted to get in on the ground and they wanted to do it, you know, learning from the ground up. And they were both interested in the technical side, which is we're seeing more and more of, is the girls want to do more technical stuff, more of the coding, more of the scanning, more of the setting things up, configuring, applying, that type of thing. And I think we need to work with them in those areas.
Okay.
Another great thing we've done is we had hired students, and the students are always eager to learn, and they want to get their hands dirty. They want to learn. So it was a lot of fun to watch their eagerness, see them get started, see them get interested. And even if they don't stay in security, they've got that background so that when they do start a new position, they've already got that awareness built in, so that when they start doing something, it's in the back of their mindset so they can add it in when they're with their new position that they're doing.
Well, yeah, I agree, you know, because information security now is a life skill, right? So even if you're not an information security practitioner, meaning you don't get paid for this, you still have information security stuff, right? You're still responsible for securing your home internet connection, you know, all your IoT devices that you're plugging into the network all the time, your own computer. So you're right. Even if they don't stay in security, there's still so much value for them.
Yeah, it's almost becoming a life skill. Like you mentioned, the IoT, the digital home, all of that. If you don't know what you're doing, you're opening yourself up to some serious repercussions. Doesn't take much for someone to hack in and really do some damage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the homestead back in Fargo, you know, was much more secure than now you have an internet connection, right? I mean, you can control that security, but you just introduced, you know, other things that you need to think about.
That's right. No kidding.
Yeah. Well, and even if they don't stay in security, just wherever profession they end up in, having that security background is going to make, you know, wherever they work more secure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we
Not only that, when they start it, you know, you have all of that orientation that you go through, where you have to go through all of the training, and it's all pushed at you in what, 2-3 days.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to remember it for the rest of your career. That never works. It's something that has to be ongoing. So if they've already started with it, like I said, they'll continue that ongoing. So.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things you mentioned too, which I think is a common theme that we've heard, Brad, is mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Women entering our field. Now, in your opinion, Theresa, do you think women, because I think we all need mentorship, but do you think women in our field could use it more than maybe the men, just in your opinion? Just because there's less women? I mean, in our industry, women are a minority.
I think anyone starting out in any field, whether it's information security, whether it's business, whether it's a trade such as welding, needs to have a mentor or a coach. Mm-hmm. Someone who takes an interest in them and helps guide them along their career path. Not necessarily just, oh, you're doing great, you're doing good. It's building them, helping them learn those new skills, encouraging them to challenge themselves so that they continue to grow. Women sometimes get, forgive me for saying this, left out because it is, it is primarily, like you said, 75, 25%. So when a young woman comes into the field, sometimes the guys don't know how to react to her, or they're scared to guide her. So I think if we can get rid of some of that unconscious bias, it'll become more stronger, more enforcing, and it'll help build not only those who are coming in and need that guidance, but it's also going to build those who are giving the guidance and the coaching.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Because we had to do the same thing here, Brad, where we had to, you talk about unconscious bias, you have to be intentional, to fight that until it becomes more kind of natural, right? Until that bias sort of wanes and goes away. We had to do the same thing here. I remember the first women we hired here, we did it on purpose. There wasn't like, oh, we just accidentally hired a woman. It was, we looked for them.
Yeah. And I think from the consulting side, team side of it, we've got, it's almost 50-50. It's about 60-40 men to women. And, we already have identified when we're ready to hire. I've got somebody in mind. It's another woman, but the communication skills and stuff it's very different, right? Just seems to be more natural for a lot of the women versus, some of the guys that we see from the technical side of things. And so that's a great addition to the team, is being able to have some that you can bounce things off of and get some good feedback, or they're just really good at delivering that bad news in a good way.
That's true.
You bring up a great point, though. You're talking about soft skills, and that's something everybody in the technology field needs to hone or practice or learn. Communication's a strong one, whether it's speaking, active listening, writing, whatever. Those are 3 key skills that you need to have in order to be successful in the field. You might be the greatest technical wizard ever, but if you can't get your point across to someone who is totally non-technical or who is just coming in and learning it, you're not helping build the field. You're not helping with getting others interested and fired up about what it is they want to do. I had mentioned the students. We started this at NDSU, and we also did at U in Miami. We had 3 students that came in. No, 4 students that came in. Their majors were not technology. All 4 of them went on to accept a position in the information security field.
Nice.
Wow.
So,
yeah, what's interesting is, and I think we have a really good team, for communicating, but it's just the different way that, some of the women on the team look at things and how they articulate it is just, even from myself, like, well, here's what I think, and how do I say this? And they'll come up with some other way. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's really cool. I never would have thought of that, right? So definitely good to see that.
right. When you bring in diversity, whether it's whichever kind of diversity you want to call it, you bring in different mindsets, you bring in different critical thinking skills, and like you said, you bring in the different ways of communication. You have 3 different people, you have 1 problem to solve. They're probably going to have 1 way to solve it, but they're going to communicate it in 3 different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So going back with the ratio, one of the things that I think stuck out the most, even through 7 weeks now, is when we had Victoria on, and she had mentioned, she was transitioning from the insurance industry to information security, and she had a friend who was a recruiter who told her, she was like, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but basically she was looking and asking him if, hey, can I get into security? Can I get hired? And he basically said, well, you're smart and you're good looking. Yes, you'll get a job.
What?
That was what a recruiter told her.
Your reaction is the same exact reaction that Brad and I had. We're like,
Wait,
really?
what?
Who would say that? I mean, it's just, there's no place for that, but.
So, yeah. So with that, and what we've heard consistently is kind of that bro culture and some of that. Have you ever experienced anything like that or seen, that bro culture? Do you have any stories around that? I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah, you can tell on her face.
Oh my.
Well, it's just the bro culture. We've heard not just that.
I guess, yeah, I'm going to go back to the unconscious bias thing, and I'll share a story, and I won't say where it happened, but we had a situation, and we had met, and there was everybody from the different departments were sitting there, and I recommended a solution, and I was the only female in that group. The rest were all male, and they shot it down. No, not going to work. Not 5 minutes later, one of the gentlemen brought up the exact same solution. It was almost verbatim. And it was the best idea since sliced bread. So that, it's not intentional, but it does happen. And at that point, I was just glad that it was going to get utilized because that was the solution that was going to work. And as long as they were all on board, I didn't care whose idea it was, just as long as it got done. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to look beyond that. Not that I like to, but in order to make things work and in order to have that team collegial, collaborative nature, you have to blend, you have to give, and you have to share. So
that's got to be frustrating. You're not the first person in the series, the first woman to say that either. So I hope I've never done that. If I have, it was definitely not intentional. But yeah, that's.
I think it comes from the way we were raised. Like all three of us are probably raised in the Midwest, right? So our dads were probably farmers or business owners, that kind of thing. And they were raised by the traditional generation where the man was the head of the household. So I think a lot of that plays in because it kind of gets into our DNA and it just sort of filters on down, and we just need to be more aware of it.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I grew up in a military family, and I was talking to my mother, who's still around, and she worked at IBM in the, I think she probably started in the 70s, maybe. Yeah, so she was kind of a pioneer in her own sense. But I was telling her about this, and I was like, so did you, growing in your career, did you run into, kind of the bias, with women and men, and what was it like? I was just trying to understand. And this is the same woman, by the way, who called me intolerant and a bigot once. Same lady.
It's not that hard to believe, but.
She did say it, but then I was like, I don't know if you're using those words right. So, but I was asking her that, and she said, I thought the thing that was really interesting that she said was, in the military, there is no man or woman. They treat them all the same. And I was like, really? So she was in the Marines in the 60s, and my father was in the Marines from 57 to 78. So that's where they actually met. My mother worked for my father in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
But I thought it was really interesting how she, and I paraphrase too, that's basically what she said, is that in the military, there was no man-woman thing, right? You all got treated the same. I thought, well, that's kind of cool because we keep saying bias. I wonder, if that's the military way, that's intentional, right? That's how they do things. And maybe we need a little bit more of that. Maybe this is how we do things. And and it's going to feel awkward at first because it's new to you. But once you get used to it, it's just the way things are done. I don't know.
I still think Judy's advice or whatever for hiring, where when HR screened the resume, when they sent it to the hiring manager, they stripped all the identifying information off. No name, email address, anything. It was just the job, like the experience. And I think that's something we probably should look at implementing more places. You would get better candidates because you're going to get rid of a lot of that bias of a name or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
there's a lot of companies starting to do that now, where they strip all of that off, and all you see is what the experience is and the education, and go from there.
Well, I think we found it. Another thing that I think it seems like today in the United States anyway, there's a lot less respect for people.
Oh,
I think if you just treat people with respect, like, and so if I said something that offended you, Theresa, we have enough respect for each other where you would tell me, I hope.
Yeah, and vice versa, you would do the same.
Yeah. But it comes to that respecting somebody for who they are,
Well, I listened to your podcast with, I forgot her name now. She's friends of mine. She now just started her new business. She talked about kindness. And I think kindness and respect are two, and honesty. There are three things that you really need to be successful, in addition to the other items. But those are personal things, the kindness and the honesty and the respect. They need to come from inside, and you need to be genuine about them. And when people understand that you're genuine, I think they react to you in the same way. You get what you give, is that adage. So if you're going to be kind and respectful, thoughtful to others, and honest, you will most likely get that back from them. And I think that those things are critical. You need that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, one of the things we do the security shit show on Thursday nights, and we call people out, not by name, but call out certain bad behaviors, in the industry. And I think another thing that we can do, and I'm saying this, but I'm also asking this to get your opinion. Another thing we can do is defend each other, defend good behaviors, right? So if somebody were to say something disparaging about Theresa or anybody else in this industry, wouldn't it be my sort of duty to say, hey, hold up, you don't even know that person. You know what I mean? Instead of tearing them down, show some respect, reach out to them in person.
And I think that goes not just within our profession. I think that goes within our whole lives. We have a tendency to, and not necessarily we, I'm not just saying, but people have a tendency sometimes to, I don't know if it's because their self-esteem is so low that they want to tear other people down to make them come up or what. But I think, like I said, the kindness and the honesty and the respect goes a long, long way. And I'm going to tie this back to some of the coaching and the mentoring. I've worked with staff who have been told when I would come on board, well, you're probably going to need to think about getting rid of them because they're not productive. And I go, really? Yeah. So then they've already created a bias in my mind. Okay, what am I going to have to deal with here? So when I start to visit with that person whom I'm going to be providing coaching and guidance, I don't like to say oversight or management of which do, but to me, those are secondary. I need to understand that person. I need to get to know them on their basis. So I've had success and I have had failures. I've got one where we've decided that, you know what, the technical part, no, he's not so interested in it, or she's not so interested in it. So we move them to compliance because they're really good at interacting with people. They're good at problem solving. They're good at a few other things, but you know what? Maybe they're not so good at writing a report, or they're not so good about putting an audit plan together. So that's where you teach them, and that's where you get them fired up. Those are just, ideas I'm throwing out there. But then again, there are some kind of wonder why they got into the field. Is it just because they thought they were going to make good money? If you're in it for the money, get out, because this is not a position where you're going to make good money. Yes, the salary's good, but you're going to earn every dollar you make.
Mm-hmm.
So you better be in it because you love it, and because it's your passion, and because you're driven to do it, not because the salary's good. And Evan, you're a good example of that, because you always say it's not about the money. And I see that every time I work with you, because you go that extra mile. You did it with the team here at NSHE. You came out and you said, okay, go to, the security suite, use these tools, use this. You didn't try to sell us anything. You wanted to help us. You wanted to get us going in the right direction. And for that, I know every one of those people that were taking that course really appreciated it, because they knew you were there because you cared.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you I really appreciate you.
Well, it's truth. So I don't say anything I don't mean.
I know. I love it.
I don't want to say anything and ruin this. You guys had
right?
That was really nice.
My face turning more red. Well, and but you could sense the passion in Theresa when she was saying
100%.
She's in this for the same reason. She's in this because she loves helping people. She loves protecting people. She loves doing things the right way. She doesn't take shortcuts. I mean, you can see it.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah. I love your approach of, I think too many people dismiss that kind of that institutional knowledge if somebody's not in the right spot, and they're just like, well, it's not a fit, get rid of them. But there is something to be said for, there is institutional knowledge and finding the right spot for somebody and understanding, well, maybe it's not technical, maybe it is here, why don't you try that? It's refreshing to hear.
Mm-hmm. And some of them, they got hired, maybe they're coming in as an analyst, but they want to go in another direction, but they've been stymied because the previous person didn't see that and didn't help guide them. And that's what they need to do.
I've had, luckily, as far as I know, it hasn't happened to me, but I've got, friends that have been told, no, I'm not going to let you transfer because it would make you do so much. You make me look good. I can't afford to lose you. And having them, and we're talking at like Fortune 100 organizations.
I'm sorry, my mouth just dropped, because if the manager has got it so that person has really making him look good, that means he's done a good job. He should allow them to move on and accept new challenges, and then bring in some new, fresh thoughts, new people to guide and grow them as well. Your job as a manager or as a leader is not to hold people still. It's to grow them and move them. Yeah. You consider yourself a success if somebody is leaving you for a better position.
Yeah, and in this case, they left. They were there for 7 years and quit and got a better job.
Good for him, her, whoever it was.
Good for them, but think about how much knowledge just gone because of somebody being selfish.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
But the next company really benefited, right?
Yes, very much so. So I guess we keep hearing that there's not enough women in security. What can we do to recruit more? You're saying you're seeing a lot more in higher ed of younger women getting into it, what from a private sector, what can we do to encourage it? What are you seeing that's working really well that you're seeing this influx?
I think as our younger generation are being more willing to look at diversity and change and accept the different ideas. You have to have an open mind. If you don't have that open mind, if you don't have that open thought process, it's going to hold you back. So you have to open your mind up, allow them. You're going to learn both ways, put it this way. So by hiring more females, you're going to broaden your think tank, so to speak. You're going to broaden your skill set, not only in soft skills, but in technical skills as well. Because sometimes women have a way of doing things that are different from the way the guys do it.
Oh, yeah.
And it works. So I think there needs to be that welcoming exchange between both of them, not just, male to female, or vice versa. It's just got to work both ways. So once that happens, then you're going to see a lot of change and a lot of growth. We already are seeing change and growth. Even with the 75-25 ratio, we are seeing a lot of growth. And I think over the years, you're going to see that ratio continue to shrink. It's going to get less and less. It already has, because it used to be for every 100 technicians, only 18 were women. So you're already telling me there's 75 men and 25 women. So it's already starting to change. And I think it will continue to change. We have to get the girls beyond the mindset that they can't do math or they don't understand science, or that they aren't geared to do math or science. We need to encourage more of the STEM and make sure that continues through college. When the kids are in high school, the girls are very active in STEM. They like what they're doing. And once they get to college, something stops there. And what was 50% women all of a sudden drops down to, and I'm just using figures, for 30% women. And then when they graduate and they get out into the workforce, all of a sudden that drops down to 20%. Why? Is it, what are those reasons? I know a lot of them say, I've heard a lot of them say that they didn't feel welcome or they didn't feel that they belonged. So what do we need to change there? How do we need to change that mindset so that they do feel welcome? They do feel like they belong. They do feel like they're part of whatever their culture is for the business that they've gone into.
Well, and I think what we can do, because we're, being that we're men in this industry, we are the majority, right? And whenever you're in the majority, you have the ability to use it for good or bad, right? Bad examples would be, to make people feel uncomfortable, right? To say things that are hurtful to others. And that might come from unconscious bias. It might come from my own insecurity. It might come from whatever. But I think as men in this industry, we can be more welcoming. We can be more respectful. We can, if you're so insecure in your own abilities that you need to put somebody else down and make you feel better, turn that around and get some education, get a book. You know what I mean? That's the healthy way to do it, instead of putting somebody down. Because for me, if I ever saw, because some of the things that I've heard in this series have been kind of heartbreaking. I mean, when you hear somebody who feels unwelcome, Brad, you've been in places, I've been in places where I felt unwelcome.
Oh yeah.
Holy crap. And what's the first thing I want to do? I want to get the hell out of there. And so if a woman's feeling that in an industry, oh my God.
Yeah. You don't leave a position because of the job. You usually leave it because of the manager or the supervisor. That's what happens. And I want to say it isn't just men. I have worked under women who've been nasty as well. that's the best word I can use. They have so many insecurities that, you know, the people underneath them are hurt by it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's, you know, if you're in a position to say something and affect positive change, you should, but I think it's hard to do that, right? A lot of people, you're putting yourself out there. It's a lot easier to just kind of be quiet and not say anything when you see somebody getting, you know, beat down or put down or belittled than it is to speak up. But I think we need more people to start speaking up and, you know, affecting that positive change. If you have that opportunity, you should be taking advantage of it.
And that's where you also need that mentor and that coach. And that mentor and coach, I've had a lot of mentors and coaches, and the majority of them have not been within the workplace. I have reached out to others and asked for their advice, asked for their honest opinion, and they've helped me grow a great deal. I think if you're going to look for mentors and coaches as you're just starting out, you not only need them in the workplace where you're at, but you also need to reach beyond that workplace, because you need to get a full 360-degree view. So that's critical.
Yeah.
You want to do that, and it's not hard. You can go into some groups. There's several groups out there, technical groups, CIO groups, CISO groups. EDUCAUSE has really done a nice job with that, as far as putting groups together, putting people together. You feel safe reaching out to them. And that's it. You need that safety net, I guess is what I'm trying to say, where you can reach out and you can say, hey, I'm having an issue with this. Can I talk to you? And usually they come back, and sometimes you're going to hear what you don't want to hear. Other times you're going to hear exactly what you hear, because you knew in your heart that's what you were supposed to be doing. And they just gave you that affirmation to go ahead and do it. Within your workforce, you need that coach mentor to help guide you so you don't make some of the serious mistakes as you're trying to move forward in your career. I don't know about you guys, but I've made some real boo-boos in my lifetime and trying to fix them. I mean, sometimes it'll take a lifetime to fix them, because for whatever reason. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
I made some real boo-boos in the last 48 hours. So
like a scrunched up Harley, huh?
yeah, exactly.
Well, we're just grateful you didn't get hurt.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I am too.
Mm-hmm. All right, so kind of wrapping up, any other women's issues that come to mind that you want to talk about? Anything just at all? Maybe not even women's issues, just anything at all that you kind of want to wrap up with? Parting words?
Just that.
Sorry.
Whatever.
Not even parting words. We got news too still.
Well, from the interview portion.
Oh,
Yeah.
From the interview portion? Okay.
Sorry.
No, like Kristen Judge said, I finally remembered her name. And she's a cool lady.
Right?
Oh yeah, she's just neat. She talked about kindness. You mix in kindness. Be kind, be honest, be thoughtful. Do your work with pride. All of those things are important. And the other thing is to take care of yourself. You know, if you don't, you can bury yourself in your work. And maybe that is your passion, but you also need passion outside of what your profession is, whether it's scooting down that Harley in a wooded highway, or digging in the sand here in Las Vegas and trying to grow things. By the way, I've got great rose bushes. You know, whatever it is you like to do. Like my CIO loves to go horseback riding. She just recently bought a horse here, and she's training for competition.
That's cool.
So, you know, it's like, like I say, take care of yourself, especially in these trying times. You need to give yourself some self-care. You need to give yourself some forgiveness. You know, nobody's perfect. You have to accept that there's going to be a few glitches, and that you might not ever look perfect. And then he said, just be who you are.
There you go. Love it.
That's great advice.
Yep. I love it.
All right. So thank you very much. Really good advice there. We're going to talk about some news. So chime in, just kind of a couple of, just really only 3 things that we're going to talk about. But first was some follow up on the Twitter hack from last month now. It was interesting. It was a teenager, like 17, that led this, and it was all basically social engineering. They called Twitter and got accounts. So,
dude, I told you, there was so much speculation that this was a state-sponsored thing, and it was like, there's no way in hell.
No, but it's crazy that 17-year-old in Tampa, and then a 22-year-old and out of Orlando, and a 19-year-old in the UK. And yeah, they're facing a long time.
I just wish they would have put those skills to better use.
Right?
Look what we lost. Ugh.
So, well, hopefully, and a lot of people in our industry do get a second chance. So maybe they'll get a second chance and
let's hope
make good on it. I think the Nima Fazeli's nickname is hilarious, Rolex.
Yeah.
If you have a nickname of Rolex, you probably have your priorities wrong.
Yeah, right. So yeah, they said that they targeted a small number of employees through a phone spear phishing attack. They got internal access and employee credentials, and they got 130 Twitter accounts. They tweeted from 45, accessed the direct message inbox of 36, and downloaded the Twitter data of 7. So not a huge.
But it sounded like they were pretty important Twitter accounts.
Yes, very, very, very targeted. I think they said they got several $100,000 in Bitcoin.
Well, it also shows you how novice they are, right? When you gained access to these accounts and then you almost immediately use them. I mean, you didn't.
Right.
You could have done so much more with this kind of access, but I guess, when your nickname's Rolex, this is what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. They're facing, a long times of jail. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and intentional access of a protected computer. And that charge alone could add up to 20 years in jail and a $250,000 fine.
Wow.
So.
Well, that's what happens. I mean, if you're going to piss people off, don't piss off powerful people.
Right.
And if you're going to piss off powerful people, get away with it. Don't, I mean,
yeah.
These are powerful people, right? They're not happy.
No.
Yeah.
They got friends in high places.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're hitting some of those people that they hit with, that's not who you want on coming after you.
Oh, and it's almost good that the police do have you now, because any one of those people could just make you disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have the resources to find out who you were. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They know. They knew probably about the same time as law enforcement, maybe earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So now at least there's some, justice, so that hopefully that's the end of it. All right. Second story was off of InfoSec magazine. Ohio researcher admits to selling secrets to China. Scientific trade secrets from the Nationwide Children's Hospital Research Institute. It was Li Chen and Yu Zhou. Both worked for the Research Institute for 10 years, from 07 to 17 and 08 to 18. And then, yeah, the one thing I was bummed about out of this article is it didn't say how they got caught. I mean, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of hiding going on. They monetized one of the trade secrets by making and selling exosome isolation kits, and then they set up a company in China to sell the kits. So I'm guessing that's it's pretty blatant. But
well, the thing is, I mean, I wish we would wake up a little bit more and realize that China is an enemy of the United States. They're an adversary, not that all Chinese people, right? So you got to have the ability to separate. Unfortunately, this is going to lead to things like this will lead to a lot of discrimination, I think, against Chinese Americans, people that are legitimately here and don't work for the Chinese government. But for those who do work for the Chinese government, they're stealing trade secrets left and right. I don't know how many. I think the FBI is opening 50 some odd cases a week or something on intellectual property theft.
Yeah. It says that she stole from the Institute after receiving payments from the Chinese government. So exactly that.
And nothing happens in China. Nothing happens in China without the Chinese government knowing about it. Period.
Mhm.
Yeah. So part of the plea deal, and it didn't really say, there's not a lot of details in this article. I'm gonna have to dig some more, but part of the plea was she agreed to forfeit $1.4 million together with 500,000 shares of common stock of Avalon Globocare and 400 shares of Gen Exome Technology. So financially, that's pretty big. I don't know if the Chinese government's gonna cover that difference, but
No, well, she doesn't care. You know what I mean? If you see the way Chinese people who are actually working for the Chinese government work, they're not motivated by money. Take all the money. They don't care.
Good point.
I mean, that's disappointing to see that that's part of the plea agreement. I mean, the only way to get data back that's been lost or stolen is to make the data no longer valuable. Unfortunately, a lot of this research data you can't make no longer valuable.
Right.
So you're kind of
Intellectual property.
Yeah, damage is done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. How many years of research and everything just gone?
Right.
They could visit with an export control officer, whether it's one for a university or otherwise. They can provide you with a lot of information on what they experience and what they go through.
Oh yeah. Maybe we should do a series on that. Just, because one of the things, if you should be doing this regardless of whether you have Chinese Americans who work for you or not, right? Is egress traffic filtering. It's
Mhm.
some sort of data loss prevention, whether you go with a homegrown solution or you buy a solution. But if you see any traffic going to China, right? And, especially like us, right? We're FRSecure, we're in Minnetonka, Minnesota. Why would we have anything anywhere communicating with China? Period.
Yep.
You see something, okay, red flag. That's one way to exfiltrate data. The other way to exfiltrate that data, obviously, is, physically. So, there are strategies to combat that as well. But even just something simple like egress traffic filtering, most organizations don't have that even in place. They have no idea.
Yeah. No, very true. All right. Last one, very quickly. Just a heads up more than anything is that Emotet is returning after a 5-month hiatus. So it's back. Be aware.
Our friend is back.
Yeah. What's interesting is there was a vulnerability, or they found the password and people were downloading and somebody was hacking the payloads of Emotet and putting in GIFs and like various random GIFs for that. So it was pretty funny, but it is back and we are seeing it. So just be aware, and maybe a good time to do some re-education of your users.
Yeah.
We may be in isolation, but the nefarious hackers, crackers, whatever you want to call them, they're working overtime right now.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's it for episode 91. Thank you again, Theresa, for joining us and making the 8th installment of Women in Security series a very special one. Do either of you have any shout outs to give this week? Evan?
I'm going to give a shout out to my wife. I don't think I've given her a shout out yet on the podcast, but she's really kept the fort down. You know, and all the craziness that we have in the world, it's so nice to have some place where I can go to find normal, even if it's just in a 5 square foot area. So yeah, shout out to my wife. She keeps me going.
Theresa, you have anyone?
Shout out to my husband who, like Evan's wife, he keeps the fort down and keeps me sane. And shout out to both daughters and my grandsons who call me Grandma T. Without them, I have they give me a lot of joy.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give a shout out to my daughters for actually sticking with it and helping me build and actually listening and learning. And it's kind of nice. You know, they're 14 and 12, so I'm gonna take advantage of them actually paying attention to me while I can.
Oh yes.
They grow too fast. Yep, enjoy that.
So they did a great job helping me though. So it was fun.
It is.
All right. Well, thank you to all our listeners. Keep the questions and feedback coming. Send us things by email at unsecurity@protonmail.com. You're the social type. You can socialize with us on Twitter. I'm at Brad Nigh. Evan is at Evan Francen. Theresa, how do you want people to find you if they're looking?
Well, they can just email my work email address, tsemmens@nc.nevada.edu.
All right.
And I am on Twitter. I think it's at Theresa Semmens or hashtag Theresa Semmens, all one word. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So
yeah, very nice. All right. Lastly, be sure to follow our show on Twitter at UnsecurityP and follow the companies we work for. Security Studio is at Studio Security and FRSecure is at FRSecure. That's it. And talk to you all again next week.